All right, I've got my team with us, Peter, Dom, and John. Also joining us on the phone from New York is David Beers. He's managing director and head of the Sovereign Rating Group for Standard & Poor's. He's one of the analysts who wrote that S&P report. David, good morning.
Morning, Carol.
I saw this headline, and the first thing I thought, is this the first step to the United States losing its AAA rating?
Well, the answer is it's possible. A negative outlook means that, in our opinion, there's at least a 1 in 3 chance that we would lower the rating over the next 2 years.
1 in 3 chance. Do you think, is there any hope, though, that the guys in Washington can make a significant step that would make you change your mind?
Well, of course, we're mindful of the 2 proposals that you've seen on the table over the last 2 weeks. One is the proposal on behalf of House Republicans of Congressman Ryan, and the other is, of course, the president's speech last Wednesday outlining, plans of roughly similar horizons, roughly similar magnitudes of deficit reduction, $4 trillion or so. The question that we have, though, is given where we are in the political calendar, given the very ambitious time frame that the administration has outlined to reach agreement as between the Congress and the administration, namely over the next 2 months, we just think that it's somewhat questionable that they're going to get a deal that is sufficient in its scope of deficit reduction, and when you get down to the details, whether it will be seen by the market, let alone by us, as being credible. So we think this process of getting to significant fiscal consolidation in the United States, and we've said this before, is a multi-year project. It's going to extend, in our judgment, beyond the congressional and presidential elections in 2012. And remember that the U.S. Has a combination of both medium-term and long-term fiscal challenges. The long-term challenges, of course, are around the aging of the population, its impact on health care costs, and Social Security. And this debate in the country really is just beginning, and hard choices are going to have to be made. And we just think it's highly unlikely that whatever agreement that the Congress and the administration might make over the next couple of months is going to be sufficient to turn the tide on the upward debt trajectory in the U.S.,
all right, David,
which in our view is diverging from its AAA peers.
David, let's come back to timing. You said there's something like a 1 in 3 chance of a downgrade in the next 2 years, and if Congress does fail to act, how long would it be before an outlook is replaced with a downgrade? How many months? What are we talking about here?
Well, you're asking me to peer into the future on the timing of what Congress and the administration might do. I'm just explaining what time frame and outlook typically addresses. So we'll have to wait and see what, if anything, how this process plays out. The process I was talking about earlier that the administration's talking about, which is getting Congress to work with the administration over the next 2 months. That's one benchmark to look at. And if that doesn't go anywhere, that is something we'd have to look at. Or, as I said before, it's possible that they'll come up with something, and then we'll have to look at that. So I can't. Outside of the, apart from the envelope that a rating outlook addresses, I can't give you exact dates at this point because none of us knows how the process the administration is talking about is going to play itself out. So we'll have to wait and see on that one.
David, this is Peter Cook here in Washington. Let me ask you another part of this story here, and that is you all are raising the question that it's highly unlikely any deal can be reached, a political deal between Republicans and Democrats. Are you all also at the same time raising questions about the plans that have been put on the table both by Republicans and Democrats? Do you believe the president's plan or Paul Ryan's plan in the House of Representatives is adequate to the task?
Well, there are 2 points to this. We didn't say that no plan is possible. We're just uncertain as to whether it's of sufficient scope. judged by their own standard, which is roughly $4 trillion in deficit reduction, right? Whether it's going to match that broad objective that both sides ostensibly agree upon, and also whether, when you look at the minutia of any agreement, whether it seems credible to us in terms of the assumptions that underlie it. So we're not saying that no agreement is possible. We're just unsure as to the time frame and whether it's going to be seen as credible, not just by us, but by the broader marketplace. Coming back to your other question, I think first of all, we're not we don't take a position on what Congress or the administration should do. We think that the $4 trillion target is a worthwhile goal to work on. Now, if you look, as I said before, at the medium to longer term, that's not enough to ultimately halt the rising trajectory of a U.S. debt, but it's a useful starting point. But as you know perfectly well from looking at the two sides' proposals, there's a very large gulf between them about how they want to get there. And ultimately, we may well see all this threshed out in the coming congressional and presidential election campaigns. But we would just highlight, and you'll see when you read through the stuff we published this morning, there's and we're not the only ones who have said this, of course, there's a big gulf. Obviously, the administration favors some mix of tax increases as well as a variety of spending reductions. And the Republicans are placing everything on spending reductions.
David, it's Dominic. Dominic,
yeah.
Just a quick thought here. What is the next step if things continue on their current trajectory? Not saying that they will, not saying that you have a belief that they will. What is the next step? Is it another ratings outlook, or is it a ratings cut? What is the next step if things continue on their current trajectory right now, David?
Well, if they continued on their current trajectory, other things being equal, next step would be to lower the rating. The other possibility is if things, as I said before, move in a direction of some comprehensive fiscal consolidation program that we think is sufficiently large in scope and is actually likely to be implemented, the rating could be affirmed. So an outlook change does not necessarily lead to a downgrade. That's why its definition, as I mentioned before, is at least a 1 in 3 chance. And in judging those chances, it's judging the process that we just discussed and how that plays out.
David, though, let me ask you, I know you said 1 in 3 chance over the next 2 years, but I mean, how likely is it that was this to kind of push and nudge the guys in Washington to get something done? I mean, the timing's kind of interesting here. It's a holiday week. Was this to nudge the guys in Washington to ultimately get something done? I mean, have you guys been sitting on this report for a while and you finally said enough is enough? I've got to push the button. It's going out this morning?
Well, first of all, our rating is our rating. It's up to the guys in Washington, to use your term, what they want to do with our opinion, so we're not advocating that they do anything at all. We're just talking about the credit consequences of continuing to do what allow present fiscal trends to continue indefinitely. Mm-hmm. But as I said before, we don't have a policy position about what the U.S. government should do.
Okay.
Our job is to offer our opinion about what the credit consequences of policy is.
Got it. You certainly did. You certainly woke up the markets this morning. David, I know you're a busy man. I know you're in demand this morning. Thank you so much for carving a nice chunk of time out for us. We certainly appreciate it. David Beers there from Standard & Poor's.